Ooh, this is hard because there's so many. I think I'd have to choose number one, Pippi Longstocking. Okay, so cool. I love strong girl heroes.
Yep.
You know, she was literally a strong girl hero. She could lift her horse above her head, and she had the cheek of Peter Pan, another character I wish I created. She was cheeky and yeah. So those kind of characters. But the fact she was a girl, a strong girl, really meant something for me. Oh, when I was 16, I wish I was told you don't have to be in such a hurry about everything. Yeah? I mean, when I was 16, I think this is even more true of children today. You know, you have this expectation that everything needs to be sussed immediately. You need to know where you're going, you need to know what job, what career, you know, what you're going to be doing. And life often doesn't happen quite as straightforwardly as that. And I wish I hadn't you know, I'd realised it would work out in the end, yeah? So that would be my advice, you know, to my own 16-year-old self. It will work out in the end, yeah. My favourite living icon, I would say, would be David Attenborough, yeah? There is a man whose life has just been spent in something so important. I love, you know, his life's work, and he's just got such a wonderful, gentle but strong way of making his point. So his environmental message is something that really resonates with me, but also his way of saying his message, which makes it all the more you know, easy to receive, you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's so dignified, he's so strong but gentle at the same time in bringing his message across. I just have to listen to his voice to just feel that wonderful sense of a wonderful man out there, a principle.
Yeah.
And that feeds through in my work, which, you know, the Dragon books are about looking after the environment. Wizards of Once is about, you know, forests and looking after the forest, and all of those environmental messages, I'm sure, you know, go back to my childhood and how interested my dad was in, you know, the environment, looking after the environment. And he was friends with David Attenborough, who's an amazing personally he also is an amazing man. So wow, one of the reasons I'll be very hard, I quite like to go back and tell my 16-year-old self it'll be fine, is that I took quite a long time to get to having my first book published. So it just didn't just happen immediately. So I read English at Oxford, you know, first, and then I went back to art school after that, yeah? So all through my 20s I was thinking, everybody else seems to know what they're doing and seem to be, you know, on track with their career, but I needed that art school time. I mean, you know, I'm an illustrator, that's part of my job. So I spent a long time, I worked very briefly in publishing actually, before going to art school, and then I did an MA. I ended up doing an MA in narrative illustration. But every single bit of my education I use every day in what I'm doing now. And the MA I did at Brighton in narrative illustration, that was I entered a competition on that MA that directly got me my first book published. Okay. So every bit that I did was essential, but at the time it was, oh my goodness, you know, am I doing the right thing? Am I spending too much time in education? But I use everything in every day in my job. Let alone have written. I've written about 20, and I own, I mean, so many books. You know, they're everywhere. My books. Yeah, I couldn't put a number. I'm not very good with numbers questions actually. Anyway, but I couldn't put a number on it because I find it difficult to throw away books. I mean, even books that I haven't particularly liked, they mean something somehow, and so I have them. And in fact, on my bookshelves, often things are double deep. The bookshelves are double deep. So I have an awful lot of books, and sometimes I've had so many books, I've taken them to my parents' house and put some of them there, because they've got a bit more room. So I couldn't put a number on it, but a lot of books. And I like owning the physical book. I mean, I know some people love going on holiday and taking the Kindle. I don't even like doing that. I like to take the actual book and to take it in the swimming pool and have it, the thing there. And if it gets a little bit, covered in suntan cream, that's all part of the whole book experience. So I like owning them as physical objects. And I think you can't I think you can't beat the physical object for knowing where you are in the story as well. Obviously with my kind of books, which are heavily illustrated, that's much better, it's much better seeing them in that form anyway. But the physical thing of knowing where you are in the story, where you are in the book, a book is like a perfect Montessori object, really, I think. So, countless. Mythological creatures, I'm drawn to them because of this fascinating idea that they might exist, that we don't know everything about this world of ours. And in my new book, I get to go beyond dragons. So I get to have giants and sprites, and I get to do loads of research into all the creatures that peoples of the past really believed existed. So, I mean, and some of them, they're grindylows, green teeth. Lived in bogs, and they would kind of put out these skinny golem-like arms. I'm sure that Tolkien would have been inspired by green teeth, ginny green teeth, dragging you down under the bog. I love those. Mermaids, God, I love a mermaid. There's so many great mythological creatures, and I think, as I say, it's this idea that they might exist. My witches were inspired by somebody called, I think it was called Dark Anis, who was a scary female mythological monster who had a bit like in Nightmare on Elm Street. She has these really long iron fingernails. So I kind of love a sweet little domestic one, a bit like a hob. There's like hobgoblins, there's so many. Jed, I've got a real soft spot for the Wizard of Earthsea, Jed. Of course I loved Lord of the Rings. I mean, I think you can see, how inspired in my work I have been by Lord of the Rings and Wizard of Earthsea. And so Gandalf is a good wizard for me. But I think I probably have to say Jed because I love the way that Jed is flawed. I'm interested in flawed characters, and Jed is a magnificent, flawed wizard. I love a bookshop where you go in and all the books look like sweets, and because that's what I'm trying to do in my books, is make to children books like sweets, not Brussels sprouts. That's what I'm trying to do. And when you go into a bookshop and the books just look like sweets and you want to try them, and they've been picked out. And I love bookshops where the books have been picked out and the booksellers have taken time to think about what kind of books you might enjoy, and then you can go up and ask a bookseller, my kid loved this book, they're 9 years old, they're into dragons, what else could you recommend? I mean, I love a bookshop like that. Oh, I can't. Oh, Casablanca. Some like it hot. I know these are old films, but every single word in those films is perfect. Type O in Some Like It Hot. There's this running gag of type O, and I love those kind of films. I've got a soft spot for Coen brothers. Love the Coen brothers. I find favourites questions very hard. be flying. Yeah, I'd never choose invisibility or any of those ones. No, flying. You'd see everything from up in the air. I suppose you can do that in a plane, but you'd just be able to swoop, wouldn't you? I would imagine swooping like a bird. And just seeing everything from a different perspective would be wonderful. Actually, and it was interesting because the other thing that popped into my head was shrinking, which again, I suppose, you get a different perspective on the world. One of the wonderful things about being a writer is that you can do all these things. You can fly, you can have special powers, you can go into somebody else's head. That's what you're trying to do as a reader, but also as a writer, you're trying to climb into somebody else's head. And that's just such a wonderful thing to do, and trying to see things, what would things look like from, if you were flying. That's what I'm doing when I'm writing about being on the back of a dragon. Okay. Sort of being a writer is sort of having a special power. Hi, I'm Cressida Cowell, author and illustrator of the How to Train Your Dragon books and the Wizards of Once series. There we go.